Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to speak about a group of individuals who are not defined by their rarity in number, but by the extraordinary essence of who they are. The rarest women in the world. These women do not make headlines simply because they exist. They make history because they refuse to be average. They are rare not by birth, but by choice, courage, and character. In a world that often expects conformity, they dare to be different. When we think of something rare, we often think of limited availability, diamonds, ancient artifacts, or once-in-a-lifetime events. But when it comes to women, rarity is not about how few there are. It is about how uniquely they show up in the world. The rarest women are not defined by their surroundings, background, or conditions of birth. Rather, their rarity is forged in the crucible of choice. It is shaped not by what happens to them, but by how they respond to what happens. They are not rare because of external advantages, but because of internal decisions. These women do not allow their circumstances to dictate their identity. While others may be confined by labels, too loud, too ambitious, too different, the rarest women embrace their complexities as strengths, not flaws. They are not content to be categorized or constrained. They are not afraid to challenge norms, to speak when silence is easier, or to stand alone when everyone else sits quietly in comfort. What makes them rare is not where they come from, but the depth of who they choose to be in a world that constantly pressures them to be something else. Character is the foundation of rarity. While talent can be inherited and opportunities can be offered, character must be built. It is in the decisions made when no one is watching, in the battles fought internally, and in the discipline to act with integrity, even when compromise will be easier. The rarest women consistently choose honesty over image, courage over convenience, and values over vanity. Their rare quality lies not in how loudly they declare who they are, but in how quietly and consistently they live it out. You see, rare women are not rare because they have never stumbled. They are rare because they rise with grace after every fall. They do not fake strength, they cultivate it. Their character is revealed not when things are easy, but when they are hardest. It's in how they forgive without being asked, how they stay kind in cruel environments, and how they remain hopeful in hopeless circumstances. These are women who have had every reason to give up, yet they choose every day not to. The world is full of people who follow the crowd, who compromise their values for acceptance, and who live more concerned with appearance than substance. Rare women resist that temptation. They measure success differently. They do not aim to be envied, but to be effective. Their self-worth is not built on comparison, but on conviction. They know that being rare means being misunderstood at times, but they accept that with grace because they are not living to be understood, they are living to be authentic. This kind of rarity cannot be taught in a classroom or learned from a book. It must be lived. It requires reflection, self-awareness, and the willingness to grow through discomfort. It is the product of scars that have healed into wisdom and of pain that has deepened their empathy. Rarity is a woman who has done the internal work, who has wrestled with her doubts, questioned her purpose, and come out clearer, not colder. She shines not because of what she has, but because of who she has become. So when we talk about the rarest women in the world, we are not talking about those who were born with privilege, fame, or extraordinary beauty. We are talking about those who were born human, flawed, ordinary, full of questions, and who, against all odds, chose to live with uncommon depth, grace, and truth. Their character is not a performance, it is a practice. And that is what makes them truly rare. In a world that often demands silence from women, courage becomes a revolutionary act. The rarest women in the world distinguish themselves not by fearlessness, but by their willingness to act in spite of fear. Courage for them is not a one-time event, but a daily practice. It shows up in how they speak their truth when it's inconvenient, how they protect their boundaries when it's uncomfortable, and how they show up fully in spaces that were not designed for them. This kind of bravery is not loud or boastful. It is intentional, enduring, and deeply rooted. Rare women do not wait for ideal conditions to be brave. They do not ask for permission to exist as they are. Whether they are the only woman at the table, the voice of dissent in a room full of agreement, or the one person advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves, their courage shapes the course of their lives, and often the lives of others. They understand that to lead, to change, to grow, all requires the courage to face criticism, rejection, and even isolation. This courage is not always dramatic or public. Sometimes it looks like quietly walking away from what no longer serves them. Sometimes it's saying no when they're expected to say yes. Sometimes it's standing firm in their values even when that costs them approval, comfort, or belonging. The rarest women do not confuse peace with silence. And they're not afraid to disturb the status quo if it means standing up for what is right. Their courage does not always roar. Sometimes it is the whisper that says, "I will not shrink." It takes courage to be a woman who refuses to minimize herself to fit into a version of femininity that others find more palatable. The rarest women embrace their full selves, intellect, emotion, strength, vulnerability without apology. They do not dim their brilliance to make others feel more comfortable, nor do they compromise their values for acceptance. They understand that being true to oneself can be the boldest act in a world that rewards compliance. This courage often comes at a cost. Rare women are frequently misunderstood, misjudged, or even vilified for daring to defy expectations. But they persevere, not because they enjoy the struggle, but because they know the price of staying silent is far greater. They are willing to risk disapproval in order to remain in alignment with their truth. That is the kind of courage that does not fade with time. It strengthens with every trial. Rare women inspire others not because they are invincible, but because they are visible in their humanity. They show others what it looks like to be scared and still take action. They show that you can cry and still continue, that you can be uncertain and still step forward. This kind of courage is contagious. It gives permission for other women to rise, to speak, to lead, not perfectly, but powerfully. Ultimately, it is courage that defines their rarity. In every act of truth-telling, in every boundary held, in every injustice confronted, they stand apart. They do not blend into the crowd, and they are not easily swayed. They are the ones history remembers, not always because they were the loudest, but because they were the bravest. They carried the weight of fear and still chose to walk forward. And that, above all else, is what sets them apart. Resilience is not a trait you are simply born with. It is something forged in the fires of adversity. The rarest women in the world are not those who have never suffered. They are the ones who have turned suffering into strength. Their lives are not free of difficulty, but they have learned to rise through it. These women carry the weight of their past not as a burden, but as a testament to their survival. Each scar tells a story, not of defeat, but of defiance, of choosing to move forward when everything around them said they couldn't. Life has thrown obstacles in their path, heartbreak, loss, betrayal, disappointment. But the rarest women do not allow these moments to define them. Instead, they allow them to refine them. Resilience is the quiet decision to show up again, to try again, to believe again, even when belief feels fragile. While others might crumble under the weight of expectations or adversity, these women learn to adapt, to shift, and to evolve. They are not immune to pain. They are shaped by it in the most powerful ways. What sets rare women apart is that they do not allow victimhood to become their identity. They recognize the difference between being hurt and being broken. They give themselves space to grieve, to feel, to be vulnerable, but they do not stay there. Their strength lies in their ability to heal without losing their softness. They have discovered that true power is not the absence of emotion, but the ability to feel deeply and keep going anyway. That is resilience, the ability to bend without breaking. Their resilience is often misunderstood. Some assume their strength means life has been easy for them, when in fact it is the opposite. Many of these women have been through private battles that no one will ever fully understand, silent struggles they endured with grace, with dignity, and with grit. They don't always announce their pain to the world, but you see the quiet power in the way they walk, speak, and carry themselves. Their calm is not naivety, it is earned wisdom. Resilience also means that they learn. Rare women take their experiences, the highs and the lows, and extract meaning from them. They grow. They use every failure as a lesson, every setback as fuel. They do not allow the past to make them bitter, but rather they allow it to make them better. While many repeat the same cycles, rare women break them. They are not afraid to look within, to confront their own patterns, and to do the inner work necessary to evolve. This strength becomes a guiding force, not just for themselves, but for others. The rarest women become examples of what is possible, that it is okay to fall, to hurt, to stumble, as long as you get back up. They become beacons of hope for those still in the middle of their storm. Their resilience is not only personal, it is contagious. It empowers others to believe in the possibility of healing, of growth, of new beginning. At the core, resilience is the soul of their rarity. It is not about being unaffected by life, it's about being transformed by it. These women emerge from darkness not only carrying light, but becoming it. Their strength does not come from how perfectly they live, but from how persistently they rise. Again and again, they choose to rebuild, to forgive, to believe, and in doing so, they show the world that resilience is not a reaction, it is a way of life. Purpose is the compass that guides the rarest women in the world. It is the force that pulls them forward when motivation fades, the foundation they return to when the noise of the world becomes deafening. For these women, life is not something they merely drift through. It is something they shape with intention. Their days are not dictated solely by responsibilities or routines, but by a deep, unwavering sense of mission. They do not chase popularity, applause, or approval. They are fueled by something far more enduring: purpose. To live with purpose means to live with clarity, to know why you do what you do and for whom. The rarest women have taken the time to ask themselves the hard questions. What matters to me? What impact do I want to leave behind? What am I building and why? These are not questions they answer once and forget. They revisit them often. They check their goals, decisions, and energy against this inner compass. When others are swayed by trends or external pressure, these women stay grounded in what they know to be meaningful. They understand that purpose does not always feel exciting. It often requires sacrifice, consistency, and patience. The rare women don't just follow passion, they follow responsibility. They stay committed even on the days when the work feels heavy or unnoticed. They don't need constant validation because they are anchored in the deeper why behind what they do. Whether they're nurturing a family, building a business, serving a cause, or simply showing up with integrity, they understand that every action contributes to a larger story. Living with purpose also gives them resilience in the face of failure. They do not see setbacks as personal rejections, but as detours on a meaningful path. Because they are driven by purpose, not ego, they are willing to try, to risk, and even fall, knowing that the outcome is secondary to the intention. The rarest women are less concerned with perfection and more concerned with alignment. Their question is not, will I succeed? But is this in line with who I am and what I'm called to do? Their sense of purpose is often other-centered. The rarest women know that legacy is not built in isolation. They are deeply aware of the lives they touch, the voices they amplify, and the doors they open for others. They mentor, they give, they lead, not for recognition, but because they understand the ripple effect of purposeful living. They know that one woman walking in her purpose can inspire a generation, and they don't take that responsibility lightly. This kind of drive brings both power and peace. Power because it gives them the courage to lead and the focus to stay the course. Peace because it frees them from comparison. The rarest women do not measure themselves against others. They measure themselves against their own calling. They understand that purpose is personal. It doesn't have to be grand or public. It simply has to be true. Whether they're in a spotlight or behind the scenes, they walk with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing they are where they are meant to be. Ultimately, it is their commitment to purpose that separates them from the crowd. In a world that often prioritizes speed, success, and status, rare women choose depth, meaning, and impact. They live each day as a step towards something greater than themselves. Their lives are not reactive, but intentional. And in doing so, they remind us all that the most powerful force a woman can possess is not perfection, it is purpose. The rarest women in the world are not content with waiting for doors to open. They build their own. They do not believe that opportunity is something to be given only to the lucky or the privileged. Instead, they understand that opportunity is something that can be created, shaped, and even fought for. These women refuse to wait for someone else's permission to begin. They recognize their own agency and they use it with conviction. Where others see limitation, they see possibility. Where others see a closed door, they look for a window or build an entirely new room. Creating opportunity is not about chance for them, it's about vision. The rarest women see the world through a lens of potential. They look at what's missing, what's broken, or what's been overlooked, and they step in to do something about it. Whether it's starting a community initiative, launching a business, changing careers, or pushing for representation in spaces that have historically excluded them, they don't wait for the world to change. They become the change. They identify gaps and take action, often with little more than belief and determination. These women are also innovators by nature. They think differently, act boldly, and challenge norms. They are not afraid to take the road less traveled or to forge an entirely new path. They know that pioneering comes with resistance, but they also know that progress is born from discomfort. The rarest women are not only willing to take risks, they're willing to fail forward. Every misstep becomes data. Every setback becomes strategy. They are relentless in their pursuit of growth, not just for themselves, but for the communities and causes they care about. What's remarkable is that these women are not always in high-ranking positions or holding prestigious titles. Many of them work quietly behind the scenes, but their impact is undeniable. They create jobs, launch platforms, start conversations, and spark movements. They are the unseen architects of change, designing systems, solving problems, and opening doors, not just for themselves, but for those who come after them. They are deeply aware that opportunity should not be a privilege of the few, but a possibility for the many. The rarest women are also deeply collaborative. They understand that creating opportunity is not a solo endeavor. They build networks, nurture talent, and share resources. They use their voice to advocate for others. Rather than compete, they cultivate. Rather than hoard, they help. They understand that legacy is not about how much you accomplish alone, but how many others you lift along the way. These women create spaces where people feel seen, valued, and empowered to grow. This mindset of creation rather than expectation is what gives them a different kind of power. They are proactive, not reactive. They do not waste time waiting for the perfect conditions or the ideal moment. They start where they are with what they have and make it enough. Their resourcefulness becomes their superpower. They are the ones who turn broken systems into new solutions, overlooked skills into thriving ventures, and small ideas into life-changing platforms. In a world where many people feel stuck, limited, or invisible, the rarest women shine by showing what is possible. They remind us that we are not helpless, that we can create, we can build, and we can lead, even if no one has done it before us. They show us that opportunity is not something distant or exclusive. It is something we all have the power to shape if we're willing to believe, to act, and to begin. The rarest women in the world do not climb alone, they bring others with them. They understand that true power is not about how high you rise, but how many people you lift along the way. Empowerment is not a buzzword to them, it is a responsibility. These women don't just succeed for themselves, they succeed so they can create pathways for others. Whether they are mentoring a younger colleague, encouraging a friend to take a risk, or raising a child to believe in their worth, their strength is measured by how freely they share it. To empower others is to see potential where others see problems. The rarest women look past the limitations others impose and focus on what is possible. They notice what others overlook. Quiet talent, hidden voices, underrepresented perspectives. They speak life into people who are doubting themselves. They offer resources when others gatekeep. Their generosity is not performative, it is deeply personal. They know what it feels like to be underestimated, overlooked, or silenced, and they've made it their mission to ensure others do not have to feel the same. Empowering others is not about rescuing or controlling, it's about creating space. The rarest women do not try to mold others in their own image. Instead, they hold space for people to become the truest versions of themselves. They ask questions, they listen deeply, and they encourage self-discovery. They lead with empathy and humility, knowing that empowerment is not about placing themselves above others, but beside them as guides, supporters, and allies. They give others the tools to rise, but they allow them to define their own direction. These women are intentional with their influence. They are not motivated by ego or applause, but by impact. They may never receive public credit for the lives they touch, but their fingerprints are everywhere. In the confident voices of women who once doubted themselves, in the success of leaders who were once mentees, in the joy of someone who finally believed they were enough. They invest in people without expectation of return, and their impact echoes far beyond the moment of connection. Empowerment for the rarest women is a daily choice. It's in how they speak to their co-workers, how they advocate in meetings, how they celebrate the success of others without envy. It's in how they correct with kindness, how they teach with patience, and how they lead with transparency. They understand that the way they move through the world creates a blueprint for others. They are aware that someone is always watching, always learning, always drawing strength from their example. Even when they don't realize it, their power is exponential. Because when you empower one person, you empower everyone they go on to influence. The rarest women know that movements are built on relationships, that change begins with courage passed from one heart to another. They are not focused on being the star of the show, they are focused on creating a constellation of brilliance. And so they give time, knowledge, encouragement, because they know it all comes back tenfold in transformation. What truly makes these women rare is their selflessness in a world that teaches competition. They choose collaboration over comparison, contribution over recognition. They understand that empowering others is not just an act of kindness, it is an act of leadership. They lead not with domination, but with inspiration, not by demanding loyalty, but by earning trust. And in doing so, they don't just change lives, they change cultures, families, and futures. The rarest women in the world are those who understand that their strength multiplies when it is shared. They are not content with simply climbing the ladder of success for themselves. They reach back, stretch out their hands, and bring others up with them. Their definition of success is collective, not individual. These women do not fear the rise of others, they encourage it. Empowering others is not an afterthought for them, it is central to how they live, lead, and love. It is a conscious decision woven into their everyday actions. Empowerment to these women begins with seeing others, truly seeing them. They recognize hidden talents, potential waiting to be unleashed, and dreams others are too afraid to say out loud. They take the time to affirm, encourage, and challenge those around them. They ask, "What do you really want?" And then they follow up with, "How can I help you get there?" Rare women are mirrors, reflecting back the strength, value, and vision that others might not yet see in themselves. They don't just give compliments, they give courage. They also lead by example. The rarest women show others what is possible simply by being who they are. In their authenticity, they give permission for others to live authentically. In their truth-telling, they invite others to speak honestly. When they break cycles, start businesses, leave toxic environments, or claim space in male-dominated fields, they send a powerful message to everyone watching. You can do this too. Without ever saying a word, their lives become instruction manuals, testimonies, and blueprints for those seeking to rise. Empowerment also means creating space. Rare women don't hoard opportunities. They open doors. They don't dominate rooms, they make room. Whether it's recommending someone for a position, advocating for fair representation, or simply stepping aside so another voice can be heard, they use their influence to clear the path. They understand that being powerful does not mean being the only one with power. True empowerment to them means widening the table, passing the mic, and ensuring that no one is left behind. What distinguishes these women further is that they empower with intention. They are not careless with their words or passive in their mentorship. They take the time to pour into others, to share their experiences, lessons, and even their failures. They offer both encouragement and accountability. They do not simply flatter to inspire false confidence. They challenge others to rise into their best selves. Their support is not shallow or performative. It is rooted in deep care and a sincere desire to see others win. These women are cycle breakers. In cultures and communities where competition is the norm, where comparison is taught from an early age, the rarest women choose something better. They choose collaboration over rivalry. They teach that one woman's light does not dim another's. They are secure in who they are, so they do not feel threatened by the brilliance of others. In fact, they celebrate it. When others succeed, they clap the loudest. When others struggle, they offer a hand. Their hearts are wide open, big enough to hold space for both celebration and support. Ultimately, their legacy is not measured by how far they went alone, but by how many others walk through the doors they open. These women create ripple effects that move through families, workplaces, and generations. They are remembered not just for their accomplishments, but for the lives they change, the voices they amplify, and the dreams they made possible for others. They know that real power is not in what you accumulate, but in what you pass on. And in that passing, they become immortal in the hearts they've touched. The rarest women in the world possess a kind of power that doesn't come from status, wealth, or appearance. It comes from authenticity. They do not wear masks to fit into rooms that require them to shrink. They do not dilute themselves to be more palatable. Instead, they show up fully, unfiltered, unafraid, and unapologetically themselves. In a world that often rewards performance over presence, their honesty becomes a radical act. They are not interested in playing roles. They are committed to being real, even when that makes others uncomfortable. Authenticity for these women is not about being loud or rebellious. It's about being aligned. Their words match their values. Their actions reflect their beliefs. They don't say what's convenient. They say what's true. And when they don't know, they admit it. When they're hurting, they don't pretend. When they make mistakes, they own them. Their integrity is their foundation, and they guard it fiercely. The rarest women are not perfect, but they are consistent. And in that consistency, others find trust. There is a quiet courage in authenticity. It means being willing to stand alone if that's what truth requires. It means risking rejection rather than pretending. It means staying rooted in who you are, even as the world tries to redefine you. Rare women don't chase trends or approval. They follow their inner compass, even when the direction isn't popular. Their strength lies in their ability to resist the pull of comparison and stay grounded in self-awareness. They don't measure themselves against others. They measure themselves against their own truth. Their authenticity becomes a source of freedom, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. When a woman dares to be real, she creates a ripple effect. She gives permission for others to do the same. She shifts conversations. She makes space for vulnerability. She models that it's okay to be both strong and soft, both successful and still growing. The rarest women are not afraid to show their scars because they know those scars tell a story of survival. They do not hide their humanity, they honor it. Authentic women are often misunderstood in the beginning. Their refusal to conform can be seen as difficult. Their directness can be misinterpreted as arrogance. But over time, their authenticity earns deep respect. People realize that with them, what you see is what you get. There are no hidden agendas, no facades, just truth, even when it's hard to hear. Their presence becomes refreshing in a world full of facades. And slowly, they transform the environments they enter, making them more honest, more humane, and more real. Because they live authentically, the rarest women also connect deeply. Their relationships are not built on performance, but on truth. They do not surround themselves with people who only tell them what they want to hear. They choose people who challenge them, respect them, and value them as they are. Their circles may be small, but they are rich in depth. These women know that being loved for who you pretend to be is hollow. Being loved for who you truly are is rare and sacred. So they choose the latter, even if it costs them popularity. Ultimately, authenticity becomes their legacy. It's what people remember long after they leave a room, the way they made others feel safe, seen, and inspired to show up as themselves. In a culture that often pushes people to perform, conform, and compete, the rarest women remind us that the most powerful thing you can ever be is yourself. They prove that truth is not weakness, it is strength. And in choosing to live in alignment with who they really are, they invite the world to do the same. The rarest women in the world are not content with the status quo. They are visionaries and disruptors. Individuals who recognize what is broken, unjust, or stagnant and have the courage to do something about it. These women are not passive observers of the world around them. They are active participants in shaping it. They are the ones who ask, why does it have to be this way? And then take bold steps towards something better. Change for them is not an abstract idea or a hopeful dream. It is a responsibility they take personally. Being a change maker does not always mean leading a movement on a global scale. It can be as simple and as powerful as changing the narrative in a household, a school, a workplace, or a community. The rarest women understand that change begins wherever they are. They challenge generational cycles, question harmful traditions, and speak truth in environments where silence has been the norm. They introduce new ways of thinking, new models of leadership, and new expectations of what a woman can be and do. Their courage is not the loud kind we often associate with activism. Sometimes it's quiet but persistent, like the teacher who refuses to give up on her students, the mother who raises her children differently than she was raised, or the entrepreneur who builds a company rooted in fairness and dignity. These women are constantly planting seeds, ideas, values, and practices that may take time to grow, but will eventually shift cultures. They don't wait for the world to catch up to their vision. They act now, knowing that their work may pave the way for others. Being a change maker requires resilience, and the rarest women possess it in abundance. They are often met with resistance. Not everyone welcomes change. They are questioned, criticized, underestimated, and even dismissed. But they persist because they believe in what they are doing. Their strength is not found in how loudly they fight, but in how deeply they believe. They don't back down at the first sign of conflict. They stand firm in their convictions, fueled by a clarity of purpose that cannot be shaken by fear or opposition. What makes their impact so profound is that they create change not only for themselves, but for others. They recognize that true transformation is collective. The rarest women build communities, coalitions, and connections. They mentor and mobilize. They don't hoard their wisdom or success. They pass it on. They know that their influence is amplified when they share it. Their legacy is not only in the progress they personally make, but in the doors they open for others to follow. Their change making is inclusive and generational. These women are also strategic. They know that real change is not built on impulse. It is built on insight, planning, and consistency. They study systems to understand how to dismantle or rebuild them. They educate themselves and others. They leverage tools, whether it be media, policy, art, or education, to challenge dominant narratives and create new possibilities. They are not reckless with their influence. They are thoughtful, intentional, and always learning. Their efforts are rooted in wisdom, not just passion. Ultimately, the rarest women are architects of transformation. Whether they are confronting injustice, reimagining leadership, or simply daring to live differently in a world that demands conformity, they shift the atmosphere around them. They are not content to simply adapt to the world, they mold it. Their lives are proof that lasting change doesn't happen overnight. But it does happen when people are willing to act boldly, speak truth, and stay the course. These women are not just living, they are leading a revolution, one choice at a time. In every era, there are women who stand apart, not because they seek attention, but because they embody a depth of strength, purpose, and truth that cannot be ignored. The rarest women in the world are not defined by what the world gives them, but by what they give back to it. They love deeply, lead bravely, and live authentically. They do not wait for change, they become it. They do not compete, they cultivate. And they do not simply exist, they rise again and again with open hearts and unwavering resolve. They remind us that the most powerful force in the world is not domination, but dignity. Not noise, but integrity. Not perfection, but presence. These women live lives that echo far beyond their time, not because they were flawless, but because they were real. Their legacy is not built on applause, but on impact, on the lives they've touched, the voices they've amplified, the hope they've restored. So let us celebrate them, not just in words, but in the ways we choose to live. Let us be inspired by their fire, their softness, their refusal to settle. Let us remember that to be rare is not to be above others, but to be deeply rooted in who you are, unshakable, unbending, and unmistakably true. In honoring them, we learn how to honor the rare within ourselves. Because somewhere inside each of us is that same spark, the capacity to rise, to create, to lead, to love without fear, and to leave the world better than we found it. That is the power of the rarest woman in the world.